Hey everyone, welcome back. Thank you for joining us again with Coffee Up. It's time to talk about real estate. So, Abigail, it's coffee time. What are you drinking today?
It is coffee time. And first and foremost, I want to point out we didn't even coordinate this. So
Yeah, great minds think alike,
that
right?
was it. I was going to say, so yes, today I'm drinking, I brought the can so I can show you guys. Nuri? I don't know. When we went to Costco, they were giving out free samples. Of course, we tried it. It's protein coffee, 30 grams protein,
Yeah.
1 gram of sugar, and it tastes phenomenal. Like, no protein aftertaste.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Doesn't really taste like the fake sugar either,
Yeah.
because I don't like that. 150 calories, 30 grams protein, and a bunch of other vitamins in it. So that is what I'm drinking today. I just poured it over ice.
Yeah. Well, when Abigail joined my team, she brought along a, what do you call it, Nespresso?
Nespresso.
Okay, whatever that word is.
And she calls it, say espresso martini.
No, I'm not. You're not making fun of my words.
She's one of those espresso martini.
So I did one of my
Nespresso.
Nespresso
There you go.
coffee pods, one of the Starbucks brand. And then I had some caramel flavor that I added and just my Cubana, is that how you say it? Chobani creamer. How do you pronounce that? So yeah, so I'm just doing my simple coffee this morning. So
What would you rate your coffee out of 10?
I would rate this an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10?
Yeah, today it came out good.
I would rate this one that's a solid 8.5 out of 10.
I just remembered, it's the Java sugar-free caramel.
Okay.
That's
They
what
do
I
the
added.
protein stuff too,
They
right?
do.
Big
So,
protein coffee.
but I didn't do protein coffee today. I just did my Java sugar-free creamer.
So first and foremost, we want to thank everybody for the support on our episode 1. I know it's a lot of friends and family, but we appreciate it. We hope you found it funny, informative, all of the above. Try to do a little bit of mix of both to keep you guys entertained. So
yeah, and we know the view was a little bit off.
Oh yeah, I'm finally
cut out half of it. It was
Hi, this is all
Abby.
me.
Sometimes she was like mystery talking, but we should have it right today. So
I told you it'll get better every time. That's the goal.
Absolutely.
So,
So today, what are we going to talk about today, Abigail?
So I thought today we would talk about a realtor versus a real estate agent, because they are different. And that's one of those things, like, I didn't realize there's a difference between them.
Right.
And what makes the difference? It's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, just so people know that there is a difference and what that difference is.
And to make sure somebody is, that if they're advertising themselves as a realtor, that there is a difference. You said are really different. Every realtor is a licensed real estate agent, but not every real estate agent is a realtor. And then what it is really it's kind of that we've committed to a different code of ethics. Mm-hmm. We have to do extra education on being an ethical realtor.
Took out of it, the biggest thing is the code of ethics. And
I could say, I have a lot of years of experience, and I came across something recently where someone had not disclosed some very important things about a home, and a client had done a lot. They were from out of town, so they had ordered the inspections, the appraisal, the pest inspection, everything right away, spent all this money, and then we found out there were some major issues in the attic of the home. Rats. And there were rat traps and like all this stuff that made it obvious that, somebody was aware that they were up there and it was not disclosed. And, when I went to see what I could do about it, this person was actually a real estate agent, not a realtor.
But advertising she was a realtor?
I don't know if she was advertising, but that she was just a real estate agent. So basically, if they were a realtor, I could have maybe brought it up to the board, but as a realtor, they didn't have to
abide by those.
Their standards weren't held up by someone who would say, this is not okay, and you need to correct this. Mm-hmm. So even me saying, look, you need to correct this and put this out there, acknowledge that this is going on. There was nobody to hold them to
Hold
that
them
standard and
accountable.
have them do
Yeah.
that. So that was pretty frustrating. So
Especially
again,
with, people like us where there's a line and, we don't cross that line and
no, we're rule
we do
followers.
and that's the golden rule is do unto others as you want to be done to you. And that was in my orientation from 8 to 5, full day of learning everything.
Absolutely. Well,
brought
and I
this
think it was
bad boy.
probably in your last
You
24
get
years.
one of these bad boys. Thank you for
Yeah.
laminating it for
You're
me.
welcome. Well, you're welcome. So yeah. So I did that also. And so we're members of the National Association of Realtors,
NAR.
NAR, N-A-R. And
Nar, clear.
Oh no. No, 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 no.
and there's just additional professional standards. Does being a realtor automatically make someone better? No,
No.
it does not. But it does mean they're agreed to a higher ethical standard. So
And they took the time to
get that extra education to make sure we're doing things correctly. We're all human. We all make mistakes.
And that kind of brings us into our next point of due diligence
Yes.
and why that is just so important. It's so important to do your own research and
What is due
Okay.
diligence?
the definition of due diligence.
Right.
Doing
In real
your
estate.
duty to yourself.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So one of the biggest mistakes people make when looking at a home is, wow, this home looks perfect. Like this is for me, and oh no, it's brand new.
couldn't
I
see
don't need to do
anything.
anything. Yeah, everything looks great. Everything looks great. And look, mistakes can happen. And I'm going to say this too. I tell people because there is a lot of, now with social media, a lot of bashing about different agents or different builders. Some of them have some pretty crazy, and things have happened. And I just want to point out that like one of these builders that's really bashed, we've had a home and we actually really liked
it.
their home and we did not have any issues.
And the thing about, stuff like that is it's hard. I was in the restaurant industry, and so especially in the restaurant industry too, you get it where it's easier to get bad reviews than it is good reviews because,
Correct.
there's more emotion behind a bad experience, something bad happening. People are more likely to share it than the good stuff.
And some
so
of them are really bad.
don't always listen, when you see that, take it into
Due
account.
diligence.
Yes,
Do
take it
your
into
own.
account. But,
Yeah, because look, I have found in my experience that one of the most important things is the superintendent, the person who's in charge of that neighborhood, and how much do they truly care and love what they do. I think your experience with us is, if you do business with Abigail and I, is I absolutely love what I do. Honestly, it doesn't even feel like a job. I just get so much out of what I do, meeting different people. Every single experience is different. So it's the same thing with the builders. I mean, some of these guys love what they do. The one, I tease him, I say he's OCD. I mean, but he'll be like, oh, well, look at that little paint smear on the ceiling. I want that fixed. And I'm like, oh, okay, I would have never noticed it, but absolutely, sure. So the first thing would be home inspections.
yeah.
Do you need a home inspection?
And that's why a home inspection period is a part of every.
Right. So Abigail and I always recommend that you have a home inspection period to do your own due diligence, to check various things, not just the home inspection, but to get a third-party professional. If it's a new home, they'll tell you, oh no, we've had it inspected. The county was here for inspections, and that may very well be so. But look, things get missed. Again, your father and I have had almost 14 homes, I think. So, we've been through this a lot, the buy side, the sell side. So that's like 28 times because the buyer does a home inspection when we sell a home. But we had a brand new home, and what had happened is where they connect the house sewer to the public sewer, somebody had evidently run over it, like probably one of the
You already talked about
landscapers.
it.
So it had disconnected it. And I had what's called a sewer scope. And I would have never thought to do that. But this is important too if you have a well and a septic, because things happen, on a farm, if you got a lot of land and you have well and septic, a piece of heavy equipment might have been driven over and disconnected something, because that can create a sinkhole.
Yeah.
So you want to do that.
I have a question about that. So, if you purchase a home as is, because we just got a listing to where
As
it's as
is.
is, would you still do a home inspection?
100%,
You
because it's as is with the right to inspect. Again, as long as you and your realtor agree to put an inspection period in there to do your due diligence on everything. Because,
Is that a big like foundational thing?
yeah, I
To
mean,
make
if it's
sure
a house you're going to
structurally
tear
it's
down, for
okay.
example, we had Peter, the one gentleman from Germany.
Shout out, Peter.
We love you. And Samira, and they were going to remove that home
So
and
they
build
know.
another one. So the condition of the home wasn't an issue for them. They had their visual, because they were maybe be there part-time until they just, agreed on what they were going to do there. But so in that case, if you're going to tear down the home, it's not necessary. But if you're going to use that existing well and that existing septic, then you do want to have that inspection. Again, they did it, and that one was it was an original. It was like, I don't know, maybe 60 years old. I don't remember, but it was partially collapsed.
Yeah.
So it still worked, but that way they knew that when they built their new home, they were
needed
going
to
to
do
need to do a new well and a new septic. So those were the inspections they had, the ones that were relevant to what you're doing with the property. Yeah, so absolutely.
So, I know another thing too with due diligence people need to do is surveys. That's a big part of when you're buying
Right.
a home and seeing, property lines and things like encroachments.
Yes.
Have
so,
you ever dealt with
Absolutely.
encroachments and-
Absolutely. So that would be a good real estate story. I mean, we had one of our neighbors, and the builder had gone, so there's setbacks, right? So say there's 100 feet setback. Well, the corner of their house was like,
99.9?
oh, it was like 5 inches
Yeah.
over the encroachment to the neighbor's property line. Were they going to tear down that entire home? Like, because it was 5 inches or whatever it was very minimal. So they went and they asked for a variance from the county, but there's just extra work, and you have to ask for an extension to make sure that you can get these things done by the county, because otherwise you'll have issues when you go to sell it. The neighbor might say, oh, it's fine, it doesn't bother us.
Or, oh, you pay me for that 5 inches of land.
Well, actually, what they did was they said, we will agree to the variance if you will put up a fence in between our properties.
Just the privacy. Yeah.
So they got their fence paid for.
So then that's
in between
probably
the homes.
encroached even more on there because they were already.
Yeah, it had to
Whatever.
be on the appropriate
That's what they
line.
wanted. So
Yeah. So, again, Abigail and I are big on what makes common sense, and let's work together. Well, there's a will, there's a way. And usually you can work that stuff out. But, if your fence, say the home you're buying, and maybe the neighbor's fence is 5 feet into your yard, you might want to have them move that and be like, look, this is my property, and it's going to be moved, and we need to have you move it or remove it.
would the seller have to work that out with the neighbor? Of hey, they're not buying this
everything's
property
negotiable.
unless
Yeah, that's
makes
yeah, that's all. That could be a long story. That could be a whole nother episode. So, but yeah, so you want to know that, you want to work that stuff out. So yeah, so a survey, people say, should I order a survey? Look, if there's no additional structures on the property, you may not have to do one right away. But if you want a fence, or you want to put up a shed or any other things like that, then you're going to want a survey, because you don't want to put your property on your neighbor's
have to
property.
tear it down if
You
they
want to make
really-
sure, yes. And if you're doing a bank loan, the bank is going to require a survey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and they put stakes out there. The other thing is, see if the previous owner already has a survey.
original survey.
Because you can get it resurveyed, and it'll actually say, if you get a resurvey, if you go back to that
Because
company.
depending on where you are, they cost a couple $100.
Well, probably $700 and up to thousands of dollars, depending on how much property you have. And that's usually
But
a
it's a lot
buyer's.
of work, and it's
usually
illegal, right? Like, yeah.
Yes, it's
so-
illegal. And hey, you want to know, you're buying a part of America, you want to know what part of America you own. And so does the bank if you're financing, because that the land is a huge value, especially in Florida. Sometimes the land's more valuable than the home on the land. So
I found out a fun fact the other day that apparently And I'm sure I can do more research. There's probably other states, but in Texas, supposedly when you buy the land, you don't get the mineral rights.
We found that
Which is a
out when we
big
bought
thing.
that. So I was a Florida realtor when your father got transferred to Texas, to Houston. And we're sitting at closing and I'm reading it and I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, nobody told me this. This was not disclosed to me. Well, in Texas, they all know. So usually when someone sells their property in Houston or in Texas, they sell the land, but not the mineral rights.
Oh, so it's not
because-
necessarily the government owns the mineral
no,
rights.
no,
It's
no.
the original owner of that land.
They realized way back when that they could
they-
sell their land, but not the rights to the minerals under the dirt. Yep. So again, do your due diligence. So it was 1 acre. I probably couldn't have put an oil well up on that acre in that neighborhood anyways. But if I was buying more than an acre in Texas, yeah, that would be good to know that if someone strikes oil, they're pulling it out of your land.
Yep.
So, yeah, another fun fact for sure. But anyways, back to should you get a survey? I always recommend one, but whether or not you need to do it right away, like we have one closing and, if they wanted to save up some money to do it, but before they put up their barn or their garage or whatever, because it was a couple acres, then it's like, oh, definitely. You want to make sure you're within your property line because if not, and you go to sell, you have to tear down that barn and move it. So it's
And permitting, now that you bring that up, makes me think about
Yes.
permitting. A lot of people don't realize that you have to pull permits for a lot of
well, you don't have to, but then down the road,
Yeah.
again, it could cost you a lot more money. And if the county comes in and checks to clear, like you could do an after permit, but if it doesn't clear the inspection, you have to tear down and rebuild it. So it is a lot of extra work. Some of the contractors are like, "Oh, you don't need a permit for this." Again, you have to do your own due
your
diligence.
due diligence.
Get yourself a licensed and insured contractor, for a shed. If you go to a shed company and they tell you you don't, keep in mind, this is Florida. We have hurricanes. A shed is a projectile. If it is not secured properly to the ground or to the cement slab, and a hurricane comes, it could fly off, hit your house, hit your neighbor's house, and all of a sudden you're responsible for that. So not that it won't happen anyways, but if you've secured it properly, then it's not
less of a
you.
liability.
Right, exactly. I assume. I'm not an insurance adjuster, but in my opinion, it probably is, yes.
A lot of thing too is new construction due diligence. People think, I think we talked about it a little bit, but people think, oh, it's new construction, it's a new home, I don't
Right.
have to. And
But again, so like I know the home inspectors we recommend, we do have a couple, and you can always message if you're in Northeast Florida and you want recommendations. We have some that are really, really reliable and do a great job. But I mean, it might even be just an electrical outlet. Like they check everything, every electrical outlet, make sure every window's going up and down properly. Maybe it's a little stiff because it's a lot harder to get things done after you close.
Yes.
Even new construction, you have their warranty department you can go through. But oh my gosh, get your list. You'll have a list of things. And I like the guys we use have red, yellow, and green. And red means this needs to be addressed.
Done now.
Yes. Yellow means use caution. You may want to request this to be done, but if not, this is gonna be
Down
need
the
to be
road,
done down the
right.
road. So prepare for it, maybe financially, if it's something that might be a more expensive fix. And green just means like, look, we saw this. Look, there was a little crack in the wall. We saw it. We just want to notify you that it's there. So those are things that are not going to necessarily affect the current value of your home. But if they see it, they point it out. So don't let a home inspection keep you from buying a home either.
yeah, so one of my friends actually, when they got a mobile home or double wide, beautiful. It's their closet is insane. They have it's a whole walk-in closet with the island in the middle, full of clothes. and
Luxury.
Yeah.
These mobile homes they make these days are incredible.
crazy.
And they do them to HUD standards, just a quick note. They do them to HUD standards. So it doesn't mean because you're in a mobile home that you're in a less safe.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a good thing too. With a mobile home, you can have a mobile home or a modular home. A lot of people don't realize that. And a modular home is how it's set and the standards that it's built. It can be the exact same home, but if it's a modular home, we get to use a house as a comparable. Where if it's a mobile home, we can only use for
Other
appraisal
mobile homes.
purposes, mobile home to justify the value. But if it's a modular home, they'll use mobile and homes. So just a quick point, because they are beautiful. Yes, like you said, hers is absolutely gorgeous. But go ahead,
Yeah.
you were saying.
Well, I was gonna say when they first, put it down and went in. I can't remember if it was before or after closing, but I remember her husband is in construction. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess his whole family is, and so they went in with blue tape, and everything they put blue tape, and
Exactly.
it was covered in blue tape. Now it wasn't anything like you said, crazy yellow green stuff. The electrical outlet wasn't completely
Tight.
screwed in, and the
Right.
paint, there was a paint chip in the wall, but like that stuff matters. But it was funny because it's like she was like, this is a brand new home, and it's now covered in blue tape of things they didn't do right or missed, or
Right.
wasn't up to the standards it should have
And
been.
some people are like, oh, I can do that. I can do that. But why? You're buying a brand new home.
Exactly.
Why not just let them do it so that you can focus on everything else you want to do with your new home? Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So then flood zones. So one of the things we utilize is the FEMA flood map. And I'm sure you can check this anywhere. Like even if you live in nowhere, Ohio, if your water's by a lake or a pond, you might want to see if it's in a flood zone. But in Florida, we're very big on doing that because there's different flood zones. For example, if you're buying a home in a flood zone A, that is the most likely to flood. If you're in a flood zone X, that is the least likely to flood. So what does that mean? Do you know what that means?
I believe you don't need to carry flood insurance
If
unless
you're
you're in a severe flood zone.
Right. So if your home is in flood zone A and you're doing a mortgage, you're going to be required to carry flood insurance. And even if you're paying cash, we're still going to recommend that you carry flood insurance because, there is a very likely chance that the home will flood. And in Florida, we have a lot of flood zones, so, do you buy or not to buy? You can look and see, has that, if that house has been there for 50 years and there's no recorded flood damage, even though it's in a flood zone, it just could be that
Yeah.
So you might want to take the chance. And look, if you're going to be oceanfront, yeah, you're paying for it.
But even like people are like, oh, Florida, never gonna buy a house in Florida on the beach, like it's all flood zones. Well, you can be near a lake and be in a flood zone or near a dam,
Exactly.
and that's
Or
everywhere.
a
That's
creek.
not just
Yeah,
Florida.
creek, wherever you're from.
So like the unfortunate incidents that have happened of flash floods.
Yes,
and
we see
and
it all over the
mountains,
news. Absolutely.
and it's just crazy. But just you don't have to be next to an ocean to be in a flood zone.
Right, exactly.
And that's due diligence.
Absolutely. So your agent can help you check with that, and there's online resources to check and see if your home's in a flood zone.
And remember, when you're doing these searches for stuff like this, .org, .gov, you should never be paying for a report on a home.
Right. The bank
All
the
public
bank may
records.
pay for a report, but you can get the free online services. And again, just ask your realtor. So the other is cost of insurance. Is flood required, not required? We talked about that, but that's part of your due diligence period. You want to go in, you want to get an idea of what the homeowner's insurance is going to be on the home. And there's all kinds of
Because that
variables.
adds to your monthly payment.
Right, right. You want to make sure that it's going to not put you out of your budget. Again, your realtor, ask your local realtor if they have any recommendations for local insurance. We have ours that we highly recommend. He's just very communicative and will get you an estimate for homeowners insurance immediately. And one of the big things in Florida is to get your binder. So that means you get your insurance bound because right now, if we're in hurricane season. So if you're going to buy a home and you're going to close in 30 days and you wait till the last week to get your homeowner's insurance policy, and there's a named hurricane or named storm out there, you will not get a binder. They will not insure your home, and you will not be able to close on your home until that hurricane
gosh.
completely passes. A lot of new agents don't realize that, and a lot of home buyers, whether first or second home buyers, don't realize that. So I always ask customers, the first thing is, look, call, get your binder, and once you're bound, you're good. And then we could still close even if there is a hurricane out there.
So last point I want to talk about on the buyer side due diligence is future developments, assessments, and how, that needs to be disclosed. And I guess that's due diligence of the seller per se, if they need to disclose that. But is there a way for buyers to look into that as well?
Well, again, if they know about it and they can just say, I didn't know about it. We were going to purchase a house on a 2-lane. And the day before, literally the evening before we were going to make the offer, it came up on the news, Highway 16 to become 4-lane. And we were like, oh, we don't want our backyard, because it literally backed up to that highway or that road that was going to become a highway. It was like, we didn't look, a lot of people don't mind traffic, but we were going to put in a pool and utilize that, and just decided that we didn't want to back up to a highway. So we actually purchased one in the neighborhood just a little further in. But yeah, do your due diligence. You can go online and check with the roads and what the county planning committee or zoning has already approved for that area. I know people that have bought houses and all of a sudden there's like a big highway behind them and a bridge behind their neighborhood, and they're like, nobody told us this. Maybe they didn't know when they started the development. Maybe they did. So that would be a real estate attorney question. If something appears that you were like, why didn't I know about that? But again, do your own due diligence. Don't depend on somebody disclosing it to you. So real quick, I do want to bring up about HOAs. So we have a lot of HOAs, and Florida are like resort style communities, where they've got pools and clubhouses and
Dog parks,
tennis, right, everything. Can
pickleball.
I drive a golf cart? Can I drive a golf cart? Well, it might be yes, but it has to be street legal. They have rules. And then some people maybe you have 6 cats or 5 dogs, and they might have a 2-pet limit. You want to know that. So make sure if you're moving into an HOA, we'll have a whole nother segment on that. But make sure you read those guidelines, whatever's important to you. Your father and I live in a 55 plus community. There are rules. You don't want to buy there and then your 15-year-old who hasn't graduated from high school yet is living with you, and you find out they can't live with you because they have to be adults. Someone purchasing the home, at least one of the people has to be 55 or older. And there are some variances on that, but basically 55 or older. And then if your adult children live with you, 18 or older, that is fine. But basically they want people with personal responsibility because they're going to the pool. It's a 55 plus pool. We don't want splashed. We don't want foul language. We don't want crazy music. We want to relax. We're retired. So anyway, so HOAs is another important due diligence. Permit history, you talked about that. Does somebody pull a permit? Property boundary surveys, we covered that. Easements, look, there's utility easements and water easements. This is really important. So we had a friend that bought a home and they wanted to put in a pool.
Was it the power line story?
No, there was water behind them. And the builder rep said, oh yeah, your property line's all the way out here. Well, when they went to put in the pool guy said, okay. And it was like, whatever, say 8 feet wide. And they wanted it like 20 feet wide. And they're like, wait, no, we want to take it out to here. And he said, oh, you can't do that. You have an easement. And they were furious because she is a physical fitness trainer and wanted to be able to use her
water
pool to let
aerobics,
people with like me with some knee issues to be able to come to her home and work out privately. And they ended up with a pool half as wide as what they were expecting to put in. And so that's very frustrating. So it might be utility setbacks where maybe the power company or the water company has right of way And then you just got to find out the rules. Yes, you can put something there, like your driveway might be there, but if they have to tear it up, maybe they tear it up and they don't repair it. You have to put it back or whatever. I don't know. There's different rules. You got to look into it. Age of the roof. Age of the roof is very important. Again, that's where your home inspector comes in, because in Florida, they were pushing, insurance companies wanted your roof to be 10 years or younger. And I'm like, if you know, you can get a 20, 30-year roof. Now look, in Florida, the weather is very hard on your roofs. Okay, the sun and the rain. So a 20-year roof is not gonna, most likely not gonna last 20 years. But it was frustrating that we're doing landfill.
Well, that's not even true, because one of the houses we were just at, his roof was 60 years old.
Right,
Not
right.
saying,
And it was
you
a metal
know,
roof.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, it
But-
started turning up a little and was going to need some repairs, but, you know, he hadn't had issues in 60 years. So you're right. You're right. But it was a metal roof. They tend to last a little bit longer. So again, extremely important, because that your biggest expense is going to be your HVAC, your air conditioner. And in Florida, we don't call it a furnace. It's called an air handler. So, because it really doesn't have to fire up to heat up a house like it does up north. But your AC and your roof is very important to have inspected. And if you have a pool, I found that it is good not to just have your regular home inspector. They can look it over, but I would recommend, after learning lessons, to have a pool inspector, because there were things that actually weren't connected correctly, and we had to have somebody come in and repipe. And the regular inspector's not going to know that. He's not a pool specialist. So if you have specialty things, get them checked by somebody like that. Well and septic, again, super expensive if you have to have it repaired or replaced. So with this septic tank, what they do is they actually go in and they drain it, and then they put a camera in there and they scan it to make sure, like if there's a big tree that
So
there's not roots going into.
septicoscopy.
Septicoscopy. There you go. New word of the day. Seller disclosures. Every property should have a property seller's disclosure disclosing what they know about the property. And but again, if somebody hasn't lived there, you know, they're going to specify, you know, maybe there was a rental property they had, and it's going to say, I make no claims to, you know, have your home inspection because I haven't lived here. I don't know if there's
As they say, just because the paint's fresh doesn't mean the plumbing isn't from 1984.
There you go. That's right. Utility costs. This is important. So in Florida, one of the most expensive utilities is water. Okay. And I can tell you, I've been in.
Why is that? Because we're surrounded by water.
Yeah, you would think. But again, it's salt water, you know, and you're not going down very deep. So up north, you might have a well that's like 50 feet deep, or they don't have to go that deep to get fresh water. But in Florida, that's why we don't have basements. They're like, why don't we have a basement? Well, because if you dig,
You're hitting water.
you're hitting water. So they have to go, you know, my understanding is they have to go deeper to get fresh water. So, you know, it's more expensive. And we have all these regulations. But yeah, so we've had a place where it was a postage stamp. I mean, it wasn't even a quarter acre. And our water bill, if you have irrigation, it could be $300 to $500 a month. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But our electric bill is low. Now, our newest home has reclaimed water, which means you don't drink it, but they use water from the ponds to water your lawn. So that is much less expensive. So we have our regular water that we pay for, and then they give us a separate bill for reclaimed water. But the third option is our last house had a shallow well. That was a 3,000 square foot house, a 5-bedroom, 3-bath. Our water bill average was $50 a month.
Really?
So that
That's
is
how much I paid in
huge.
South Carolina in my 1-bed, 1-bath.
Right, apartment. So for one person. So yeah, so there are different options. So that's important. But think about it. That's important. If you didn't check on that and you have a certain budget and you get your water bill in the
adds
summer and
up.
it's $500, you're going to be devastated. And you can't. If you're in an HOA and you have sprinkler systems, you can't not water your lawn, because then your grass dies and you have to resod. There we go. Okay. So then real quick, schools, if schools are important to you, you need to do your own due diligence. Your realtor can tell you what is currently, but in Florida, we have a lot of what's called redistricting because we're growing so fast. This may currently be your school, but if they're building another high school, they're going to what they call redistrict it and make a new lines of where your kid goes to school. And if you want your child to specifically go to that school, you need to go directly to the school and say, are there currently plans for redistricting? And what if they do, and my child's in sports or whatever, will they be able to stay at the school? So you need to go and ask the specific school. If that's important, don't count on what Zillow says or homes.com or your realtor. You need to go to the school.
So that actually brings us into our viewer question from Tina in West Virginia. Shout out, Tina. Is Zillow accurate?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. No. It's, it gives you an idea.
Yeah.
But I'll give you an example. So the last house we had over in World Gulf Village area, it had a bonus room. And I had had guys come in and put in a huge 6-foot by 10-foot walk-in closet and a bedroom. So that made it from 4-bedroom to 5-bedroom. Zillow has no idea about that. Maybe you put in a pool. Zillow doesn't know. Yeah. I mean, if you put in a pool in Florida.
The Zestimates.
And that's why they do the range.
Yeah.
Condition is important, okay? Maybe you get a house. Zillow doesn't know that the carpet has been ruined by dogs and kids. The entire house needs painted. All the appliances are disgusting and need to be replaced. So again, it's like, okay, so here's the Zestimate. Here's the average. If it's in really crappy condition, it's going to be the low end. If it's average, and then, so kind of like doing, what do you do for your car? You go online and see what your car's value is.
Like CarMax.
Yeah, whatever that thing is where you go on and see your car value. Your dad
it's like they're giving you if you're
right. And then the high end would be, if it's in excellent condition. But again, even an excellent condition does not have things like this home, we've had it completely painted. We've added paver patio and screen patio out. We've added a fire pit. We've taken out all the wire shelving and put solid wood shelving in, a custom pantry. Those things, people can spend thousands of dollars. I know people who bought a $500,000 house and put another $500,000 into it.
Yeah.
Now they have $1 million invested in this home. Keep in mind, you're not going to get all that back. Okay. Yes. But yeah, ask your realtor, would this be, about what kind of value would this add to my home? Is this a smart decision? But you know what? If you're going to live there forever, make it your home. Who cares?
So that concludes our episode 2. Again, we appreciate you guys listening, watching if you're on YouTube. So like, subscribe, and leave a question below if you want to be featured on the next episode's question.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers. Coffee up.
Bye, guys.